Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of Set the Tempo, the Toronto Tempo / WNBA podcast. I am your host, Tyler Conium. You are either watching this on YouTube, listening on Apple, or on Spotify. Thank you for joining us, me, today. And it's an exciting time. There aren't too many of these Tuesday episodes left because the season starts in just a couple of weeks. And at that point, we will have a new episode after each and every Tempo game all season long, whether I'm at home, whether I'm on the East Coast for vacation. Who knows? We will see. But very exciting as training camp has opened up here. And they just had was it called Beyond the Bounce? Sort of the little interactive season ticket holder fan experience at Coca-Cola Coliseum. I was not at that, and I am an official member of the Toronto Tempo, but I'm not a season ticket holder. And the reason being really is, well, two small kids. I was a Raptors 905 season ticket member for many years, I think 6 or 7 years, starting when they won their championship with Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Norm Powell. That was a really fun time. Right up through COVID. And then there was no season, and that whole thing happened there. But at the end of the day, we have a 4-year-old daughter and a 3-month-old boy. So going to Tempo games multiple times a week at night. Just not in the cards, which is really why we have this podcast where we can talk about it, watch them either together live or after the fact here, which is very exciting. And as I mentioned, training camp has opened. So we are getting to the point now where we're going to start seeing how this team takes shape. Last week we talked a little bit about the depth chart, and we'll see if that's going to start figuring itself out as well. First ever training camp opened at the University of Toronto for their inaugural WNBA season. I'm sure, as most of you do, you follow the players on social media. We've seen Marina Mabry recording a vlog of her move to Toronto. Hopefully she gets the dog situation sorted out there. I'm sure the team will take care of her in that sense. We have seen Izzy Harrison trying new foods and ketchup chips and all that. So it's been really fun to see the players acclimating to the city. Not the best weather to be joining Toronto. It gets better. Everyone in Toronto knows you're going to be in this city during the best possible time of the year. It does get better. So training camp opened at the Gold Ring Center. Strong energy, lots of competition. The roster, of course, is still being finalized. At camp right now, you've got your expansion draft picks where there were 11 of them. You had your WNBA draft picks, 4 of them. Obviously, the additional free agency signings, and there might be even more to come there. We'll see. Toronto's got to get their front court sort of picked up there. And I think what a lot of people are watching, of course, is how Kiki Rice is going to perform early in the season, throughout the season, how she's playing at training camp. She's coming off, of course, the championship season at UCLA. And that's really where the WNBA is pretty unique in that sense of it just goes right into the season, right? Whereas you have in the NBA, you've got March Madness ends, at the start of April, and teams are in the NBA are just in the playoffs. So they're not going to get drafted until the end of June. They're not going to start training camp until, August, September, and then the season starts in October. So we have all this time. Whereas in the W, you're going from your college season into March Madness, and then you're going by the next month, the WNBA season starts. So whether there's pros or cons to that, we'll see. Obviously, the WNBA season is shorter than the NBA season. But Kiki Rice coming off her championship season at UCLA, she seems to be already adjusting very well to Toronto. Of course, she's expected to be not just a foundational piece, but you could argue the foundational piece for the Tempo as they get underway. Obviously, strong all-around production, very versatile. I think she's, already becoming a fan favorite. There's going to be a lot of fan favorites on this team, and that's what I like about it, too. I think Kiki Rice, certainly. Marina Mabry is going to be a fan favorite. I think Izzy Harrison's going to be a fan favorite. Kia Nurse is going to be a fan favorite. I think that there's, obviously the expectations are going to be a little bit high because they're not just going for the lap around the court and say we're here now and build from there. They want to win some basketball games, but I think even outside that, having a very likable team, especially in a city like Toronto, how many times we've seen, whether it's the Raptors or the Blue Jays, those fan favorites that aren't necessarily the best player on the team or on the court, but become instant fan favorites. John McDonald, Yusei Kikuchi come to mind just for the Blue Jays. So that's going to be very, very fun. Of course, as an expansion team, everything is new, from the players, the staff, the systems, a new country for a lot of different players. As I mentioned, Marina Mabrey has to get paperwork to get her dogs into the country. Like a lot of things that maybe you didn't necessarily think about beforehand. And that's why it's nice that they've got such a great head coach in Sandy Brindello who's going to be able to bring all of that together, right? And the importance of the visibility. And she has a nice quote: "If you can see it, you can be it." And I think she's going to instill a lot of that confidence in these players. Well, they do have some veterans, so even though you've got the younger players like Kiki Rice, and of course your other draft picks there, you've got the Kia Nurse, you've got the Sandy Brindello, Marina Mabrey. These are players that have been around the league a little bit there. So it's going to be very, very exciting. And then speaking of exciting, another thing that the Tempo announced was they're building and plans to build a $100 million high performance training facility at Exhibition Place that's set to open before the 2028 season. So not this year, not next year, but heading into the 2028 season, they're going to have this high performance facility, which is going to be awesome. They've shared some renders and some pictures, and this is just another way. A, the players deserve it. B, it's going to be a great way to attract free agents and just creating that culture that they have done with the Toronto Raptors, with the Raptors 905, reasons to attract players to this city to want to play. And of course, again, warranted. So it's going to be located near Coca-Cola Coliseum at Exhibition Place. You have all this space there. You've got BMO Field, you've got Coca-Cola Coliseum, and you've got whatever the hell they're doing with Ontario Place. It's fully funded by the Tempo, so there is absolutely no city funding, no taxpayer funding at all. So that's obviously great to see for somebody, a league that has a lot of money, and for an ownership group that does as well. It's going to feature 2 WNBA regulation courts, locker rooms and player lounges, strength and conditioning areas, sports medicine and recovery spaces, hydrotherapy pools, sauna, film room, dining areas, all top of the line. And that's really, really cool, right? So GM Monica Wright emphasized how this is a foundation for sustained excellence to support player development, team performance, community engagement. And not only that, like as part of the CBA, there is facility standards that teams are going to need to upkeep, and these spaces are going to be required by 2028, family rooms and improved amenities required by next season. So yes, they're doing it because they want to. They are also doing some of this because they have to. Some teams, I'm sure, are going to spend more. Some teams probably aren't going to have this $100 million facility, but the Tempo will. And it's city partnership, so it's built on city-owned land. It's currently just a parking lot. The city secures 2,200 hours annually for public and community use. They can have access to camps, recreation and programming, park space. Construction is expected to begin right after the summer, so this fall, pending some approval. And until then, the team is going to be training out of the University of Toronto, which is in the downtown core as well, which is great. But yeah, it's going to be just, again, another thing for the community to be a part of. And I think that that's why, obviously, I love the Toronto Raptors, but I love the 905 because of their community involvement, because it's so much more affordable. It's so much more accessible. Now, I don't know if Tempo games are going to be as affordable as the 905 based on what I've seen for ticket prices, at least early in this season. But of course, anytime you have a brand new team, that's something that's going to happen. But having this community involvement to be able to have, camps, recreation programming, all that sorts of things, it's all good. So that is obviously very, very exciting. That's coming in 2028. So let's talk about Kia Nurse. And we talked about it a little bit on last week's show about how I didn't necessarily think you had to sign a Canadian. Of course, getting Carlton would have been nice. Portland Fire take her at the first overall pick of the expansion draft. I didn't think, don't just sign Kia Nurse just to sign her. But she's here. And I do think that given the role, I think she understands the role. It's sort of the first Canadian player in a bit of an ambassador role as well. So she calls this, she's from Hamilton, of course, just the right time in her career. She's joining Canada's first WNBA team as a unique legacy-defining opportunity. And of course, you grow up in this area. We've seen it with RJ Barrett with the Raptors, or other Canadians that have played with the Raptors. There's a sense of pride there. And to be able to do it at home, I think, is a big deal, because often you've got to go to the States to go to college, camps, all these different sorts of things. But now you can do it right from home. And not only that, now you can play professionally right here at home too. So, of course, most recently she played with the Chicago Sky. She's bringing leadership, experience, 7 years of it, 245 games. She was a 2019 All-Star. But I think perhaps more importantly than that, because her stats haven't been that great lately, let's just be honest, like I don't know how much playing time she's going to get necessarily. I'm sure in the early going she'll get a bunch because she's got that veteran presence, but she's already acting as a mentor to rookies like Kiki Rice, as we mentioned. She's helping teammates get adjusted on and off the court, including life in Toronto, which again, Toronto is Canada, even though it's very similar to your bigger cities like, your New Yorks, your Bostons, your Philadelphias. But players don't know that, right? And it is new. It's a different currency. It's a different, you're driving in kilometers per hour, not miles per hour. There is a learning curve there, certainly. So having a player who knows that you can come to, I think, is a big deal. So, and then internally, she's viewed as a key player in building team culture from the ground up because she's a very good culture fit, no doubt about that. Obviously, she's balancing her playing career with all the broadcasting stuff she does for TSN, both with NCAA coverage and with the Toronto Raptors. And it looks like she's going to be able to continue doing both of those, especially as she plays in Toronto. And again, the seasons don't really line up, so it's not that difficult to do that. And perhaps, bigger than all of that is she understands the responsibility of you are representing a country. And look, the Tempo are going to play games in Montreal. They're playing games in Vancouver. They're playing games at Scotiabank Arena. They're playing games at Coca-Cola Coliseum. This is going to be a national thing. And should Canada get more WNBA teams in the future, which I think they certainly could accommodate, for now, this is Canada's team. And her understanding what that means, it is different at the end of the day. It's just different than playing for the city of Connecticut, right? Or Indiana. When you're playing for an entire country, it is different. There is a different responsibility. Canadian basketball as a whole is different. And look, these girls are going to have such a huge impact. The Vince Carter effect with the Raptors. These girls are going to have such a huge impact on my daughter's 4 years old. She's going to have an impact on her. If she wants to be a basketball player 5, 6, 7, 10 years down the road, right? Like, there's a lot that comes with that, not just starting a new franchise, but starting a new franchise in a new country. And Kia Nurse is going to understand that. So all the on-court stuff aside, who knows what her role is going to be necessarily on the court. I'm sure she's going to be playing early on, but there's such a tremendous role, I think, outside of that she's going to be a part of. So what are the expectations for the Toronto Tempo this season, right? You're an expansion team. Most people expect you to be terrible. The Golden State Valkyries were not terrible last year in the WNBA. They were actually pretty good. And Temi Fagbenle did an interview where, as a key veteran leader, she wants to set the tone, and they want to shock the world. That was her quote, is we think we can shock the world. Now, are the Tempo going to go out and win the WNBA championship, as Fagbenle did in 2017? No. I think there would be a lot that would need to go right and a lot that would need to go wrong for a lot of other teams like Vegas, New York, etc., Indiana. So no, but can they make the playoffs? I think they absolutely could compete for a playoff spot. And Fagbenle's talking about just encouraging teammates, leading by example, promoting communication and accountability, and they're just, along with Coach Sandy Brandello, building that culture from the ground up, having that expectation that this isn't just a paycheck. There's a responsibility. They want to win, play as a new team. Brittany Sykes, again, is someone we haven't really talked about a lot, but she brings that same sort of presence as well, right? Patience, understanding. On the court, of course, Fagbenle brings defensive ability, veteran experience, coming off her best season with the Golden State Valkyries. So again, that shows she just came from an expansion team, saw what they could do. They were a good basketball team and were competing for that playoff spot throughout the whole season. So she's seen how that works. And I would say that this Tempo team is better, or at least not that much worse than last year's Valkyrie team, right? So she understands the uncertainty, the pressure, shaping an identity as well. So it looks like, by all accounts, coming out of training camp, the main mindset for 2026 is don't think like an expansion team. And although you've got some younger players, you've got a lot of veteran players too. So yeah, you're playing in a different place, but you've been here before. So you don't need to think like these aren't just all cast-offs of like players that no teams wanted and you're the misfits and all this. You got good players here. Brittany Sykes, Marina Mabry, these are good basketball players, and I think that they believe that they can compete immediately rather than, maybe the rebuild route that a team like Portland was going for. So again, with it just being training camp, there's not a ton to get into specifically. The depth chart's going to figure itself out. By next week's show, next Tuesday, we're probably going to know a little bit more about rotations. We can start talking about starting five, if there's any more free agency signings, anything else to shake out. So today's the 21st of April. The opening night is May 8th. So we are, just over 2 weeks away from the Toronto Tempo playing their first ever basketball game. So much exciting stuff coming. If this is something that you like, please consider subscribing, telling a friend, dropping a comment, dropping a like. Let's talk Toronto Tempo. You can find this on YouTube. You can find this on Spotify and on Apple. You can follow me across my socials at Tyler Conium Talking Tempo all season long. So do enjoy. We'll see you next Tuesday and start talking starting five. Let's set the tempo.